Some major AEW news as a new report claims that Britt Baker is effectively done with AEW. This according to Wade Keller, PW Torch. We are going to talk about exactly what this report had to say, what this means for Britt Baker in AEW moving forward, and what the hell this means about everything we have heard thus far about the Britt Baker situation, as she has not been an active presence on TV ever since basically All In 2024. All that much more coming up right here in this video, so be sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. All right, as I said just now, Britt Baker not been seen on AEW for a very, very prolonged time, especially when you consider the injury that kept her out for nearly a year. She then, of course, had a health incident where, it was very touch and go as far as her career goes, but she ended up making her return in the summer, and it all led up to this big program that she was going to have with Mercedes Moné. And in the end, she had a match that was, pretty critically panned at All In with Mercedes. And ever since then, her appearances on TV have been sporadic. She made an appearance at the 5th-year anniversary of AEW Dynamite in a match. And then we didn't really see her a lot since then. Well, it looks like that there's a reason for that. We have a new report from PW Torch. Wade Keller has reported the following, and this is an aggregation from the good folks over at Wrestle Purist. So it's a long one, so bear with me. Tony Khan is reportedly no longer booking Britt Baker for AEW TV as frustrations with her has grown behind the scenes. A recent incident was said to be the final straw, with sources describing her as increasingly difficult to work with. Quote, "She might be done with AEW. At least the feeling I'm getting from talking to people in AEW is Tony Khan might have her in the same category as some other wrestlers where they just don't get phone calls and don't get called up into shows. There is a lot of frustration with her. I'm told, and I've heard this from pretty consistently, she's widely unpopular in the women's locker room. One person said that no one ever wants to see her come back. Speaking of the women's locker room, now, that is a bold and broad statement. I could imagine somebody on social media going, I'm a women's wrestler in AEW and I want her back. Okay, fair enough. But I'm just telling you that somebody's perception is nobody wants her back. That's how bad it is. Somebody is willing to tell me that. There was an incident with her and MJF, and I'm told that factors into her being off television, but there are other issues with her that have come up. She has become increasingly difficult to work with in a general sense. She has always had a reputation of being difficult to work with. There was a specific situation recently, not counting the MJF situation, where people threw up their hands. It wasn't a huge deal, but it was enough to be sort of the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of just feeling like, you know what? We've got a strong women's division compared to where she was on top, and we don't need to deal with her if she's going to be this difficult to work with. So that's where they are at. So that's where they are with her, Having a tough time reading today. I am told that and this is important, because there's a lot of people out there who are claiming that this is more of a personal thing, and I really want to highlight this part. I'm told that the Adam Cole situation is not stopping her. There should be no heat on Adam Cole. He has nothing to do with her being on TV. Obviously, or her not being on TV. Obviously, she had some standout moments in AEW and became a star and was seen as a centerpiece act. But even back then, I was hearing about the reputation and being unpopular in certain circles and difficult to work with and being fiercely territorial of her role in the company in a way that was just felt unsustainable. And from what I'm hearing, at least the attitude right now at this moment The belief is Tony Khan is fed up enough that he's just going to focus his TV time on others. I don't know what that means in terms of her pay and her contract. It's possible eventually things will change. At this point in asking around, you should not expect to see her back imminently. Okay, so obviously the Britt Baker situation, one of the most talked about things recently for AEW fans, especially going into All In. It was not just her return, but that whole MJF thing where allegedly she had said something about Max to Max or in front of Max's partner, and then obviously that led to some sort of a argument between herself and MJF in the locker room. And it's something that even MJF has said, like, it was kind of like, blown out of proportion as far as what it was. But at the end of the day, it does not seem like that was the one thing. It does not seem like the potential and alleged sandbagging of some of her opponents was like the one thing. It just feels like this was a culmination of factors that has led to someone who people believe was AEW's biggest female star, someone who was going to be the defining example of what AEW was supposed to be for women's wrestling, and someone who was AEW's first women's star signed. It looks like that era is over, at least for right now. It looks like that, at least from AEW's perspective, they are not keen on bringing Britt Baker back at this point, at least according to this report. Now, what does this mean for AEW? It means you have an opportunity to build your other talent and build around your other talent. We've seen the likes of Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander step up in the past year. And Chris right now is on a roll with some of her best work with this feud with Mercedes Moné. And you could make the argument that she might be ready for a women's title run or a TBS title run. The same goes for Willow Nightingale. And that roster right now, with the likes of Mariah May, Toni Storm, Jamie Hayter coming back, Julia Hart coming back, it is stacked with stars. And the fact of the matter is, as great as I think Britt Baker still is as an act, and as good as she can possibly be, and she can be really good, I don't think that they need Britt Baker in order to be a successful women's division. They have the tools. It's just about the booking. Now, I mentioned Jamie Hayter there. We had heard that, kind of like the rumor and innuendo in some of these reports that one of the reasons why Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker, that feud never materialized, is there was little to no interest for both women to want to do that. And there was just, that ship had kind of sailed as the way it was kind of framed. And if what we're hearing from PW Torch and, some of these other aggregators is true, it kind of makes sense. Now, what does this mean for Britt Baker? Obviously, we have to see what happens with her contract. Either AEW is going to keep her around, keep paying her, and, maybe just not use her, or she gets released and you do the whole 90-day or whatever non-compete, and you end up having her probably go to WWE. I think that would be the most likely landing spot for Britt Baker. And then that would be a bit of a test because in WWE, obviously the backstage stuff does not get leaked nearly as much as it does in AEW, right? Like, we know that there's backstage confrontations, there's backstage heat, there's a lot of backstage brouhaha that doesn't get widely reported in WWE. And a large part of that is because of the fact that there's a lid on things, and then, kind of like things don't get out as much. But I think that, in WWE, it's obviously a more structured and different system, so that may actually help matters here. We've seen what it's done to CM Punk. Punk was seemingly crashing out like every other week in AEW, gets to WWE, is what it is. Maybe that's what's needed. But it does look, as of right now, it's an end of an era for Britt Baker and AEW. And look, it is what it is, man. People are going to move on. Companies are going to move on. Talent are going to move on. Bookers are going to move on. It happens. And that is why it is important to have a very healthy professional wrestling industry. Not just one company, not just two companies, not just three companies. You need as many companies as possible, giving talent a place to platform themselves, work, tell stories, have great matches, and entertain fans. That is what this is all about. It is about building a healthy industry. Not just AEW, not just WWE, not just TNA, none of that. Industry. And hopefully, and I know, like, Britt Baker is going to, you will see her wrestle again, barring her, quitting entirely. You will see her wrestle again. It's just a matter of where. Guess we'll see. We'll find out. Let me know in the comment section, though, what you guys think. Do you think Britt Baker will ever appear again for All Elite Wrestling? Do you think she will appear for WWE? Hell, is she headed to TNA? Let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. And thank you so much to everyone who made it this far into the video. I highly appreciate you. Until next time, guys, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.